So this is a beloved movie for a lot of people in this room too. For the executive producers, I guess Kevin, starting with you, why was it the right time to make Minority Report into a television show?
Well, first of all, Fox told me to. I've been a huge fan of the movie for a long time, and actually really wanted to, when I heard that they were wanted to turn it into a TV show, I said, God, I'd really like to do it. And I realized that I would have come up with a lame version of it. And then when they told me that this Godzilla guy wrote that movie, you may have heard of it, got the gig, and then started with the wonderful idea of starting with precogs. And I thought, I never would have thought that. And that's why Max is the genius, and I'm carrying his bags most of the time.
Max, why did you want to start with the precogs?
Well, I loved the film so much, and I remembered it vividly. But when thinking about how do you evolve it, not just do the same thing, we've seen shows that have copied Minority Report since the movie, which is all about stopping crimes, stopping murders before they happen. And in the movie, we follow the police department that has an infrastructure in place to do that. But at the end of the movie, that infrastructure collapses, and the precogs are sent into witness protection, essentially, to live in secret so that no one can find them because they would be taken advantage of. And that's the last shot of the movie, and I remember watching it and thinking, wait, that's a show. Like, I want to know what happens next as they become people.
Yeah. Daryl, were there aspects of the movie that you really, or themes that you wanted to replicate within the show, or parts that you wanted to kind of distance yourself from?
I think the things that we responded to and Steven responded to was really sort of what Max brought in, which was humanizing these precogs. That hadn't been done before. It was the best part of the last act of the movie, and you see Samantha Morton in it, and that was the thing that sort of sparked for Steven, and then also the ability to sort of reinvent the procedural, which could be a little bit staid, and being able to use sort of future tech and future crime to do surprising stories. That's what really excited us all.
Mm-hmm. Stark, what is it like to kind of go into a universe that's already, existing in film now, and as an actor, create this new character in this pre-existing universe?
It's really exciting. I was a big fan of the movie when it came out, and when I heard they were making a series, I was excited. So thrilled to be a part of it. And there's a responsibility that comes with that. I don't get to completely invent things, but I do get to sort of live in the world of what it would be like to have this superpower, because that is really what it is. This is somebody who, whether he wants to or not, sees the future. Little things, and then most specifically, horrible murders. And so how can you live your life seeing those things and not wanting to do something about it? So it's a lot of fun, and just to be on a project that has Steven Spielberg's name above the title is pretty exciting.
Yeah. As an actor, what's the challenge for you to kind of humanize somebody with powers like that?
Well, the nice thing is that, as Max said, he sort of grew up floating in the milk bath, and then he was sent away to the equivalent of witness protection. So he doesn't interact with humans often. He sort of comes back to the city, as you saw, and he doesn't really get sarcasm. He doesn't really get, jokes when people make jokes. So it's fun to sort of grow from being that baby chick who is learning, and over the course of the series becomes a more fully realized human being.
Mm-hmm. Meagan, I have to say, I think the introduction of your character was one of the coolest scenes I've seen in a while, just kind of analyzing that crime scene. What's it like, because this is a show with clearly a lot of technical aspects, a lot of stuff that gets added afterwards, but when you're filming a scene like that where you're kind of dependent on the technology, what's that like as an actor?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, we talked about it a lot, and especially Max and I, about what the language would be specifically, because there was such a specific language in the movie that we wanted to create that as well, and almost like an alphabet. And so as we did it, we literally went into choreography that I practiced throughout the duration of filming, and we shot that film towards the end, that scene towards the end. But you're literally, for me, being the character, I had to kind of relive the moment that the other person was having as, someone was trying to kill her, in essence, and ultimately succeeded at doing that. And so you just have to act it out and believe that it's there and see it in your own eyes as much as you can, but it's a totally different experience when you see it on, TV, and you're like, wow, they did all of that stuff and literally, followed everything I did and created this thing. So it really was incredible to watch, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of it. So
Actually, on the day that we were rehearsing, that scene did not have the choreography, and Max started. We were in Toronto and we were on the set, and Max started moving around, and he started doing this, and Max gets really excited, and he moves around, and then we realized we got to get a choreographer, and we taught you to do it.
Yeah.
And we suddenly came up with this beautiful dance, and you did nail it.
And part of the fun of it is that it goes by so fast, but it's not magic. As it's happening, it's all being built from the clues that are being collected by the sort of all this data. And so if you pause it, you'll have a totally different experience and see all the little things like, the thermal imaging and and sort of a piece of DNA that's leading to this sort of idea that, that's where the perp stood.
Yeah.
So seeing it all come together with Meagan performing
And
it was exciting.
Oh, thank you. That's what I thought was really brilliant that you had come up with, was that the fact that the perp could actually come through me while I was being the victim at the same time. So if you look at the intricacies, it's really, really interesting. You got to watch it a few times.
Yeah. I mean, do you and Wilmer get to use actual swipe screens when it comes to the precinct scenes, or are those all?
Yeah.
First of all, how are you guys doing today, man? We're all very excited to be here. I'm a big Comic Con freak myself. But how does it feel? I mean, it feels, it's interesting. At the precinct we have the iconic device, right? The machine that allows us to investigate, to look closer, and to it's like a virtual magnified glass, right? And interacts with you. And I think that what they did really well in the movie, and what I think Tom and Steven Spielberg did really well, is that they created a language, they created a dance that you could follow along, and that it was this unique collaboration between you and this computer, this machine, that allowed you to look a little closer. And so it's fun. I mean, it's really fun. I mean, then, needless to say, it's a little technical in the room. It's not as exciting as when you see it on screen, to be completely honest. But it is fun when you can imagine that you're doing that iconic thing that you were doing in your living room and in your room in the backyard, thinking that you were Tom Cruise in the movie, when you were younger. So that kind of makes it fun.
Now, playing a detective must be really cool, but playing a detective in the future has got to be amazing, especially when you're flying in on wires into this warehouse. Did you do any of that yourself, or were those all stunt guys?
Well, at that time when we were shooting, I really wanted to, but they really didn't let me. We still have a lot of show to shoot, but I was, I have a lot of fun, and I think that, obviously the jetpack scene in the movie was super cool, and I was like, I have to fly in a jetpack, man. Come on, you have to let me do it. And finally we did it, and it looked amazing, But I think that, to your point, what's very exciting about what we're doing on the show is that, we're also creating technology that probably evolved 10 years after the movie, and especially in a world where, as we can see, every 2 years technology jumps an extra 6 years, even 6 years that we're not even ready for that type of technology that we have in our hands now. But imagine in 2065, how much faster would technology evolve, and can we create a human race between the technology and you to kind of keep up with those tools? But it's fun. I mean, even I'm not allowed to say exactly the details of this, but Steven Spielberg had somehow created and pitched this idea of a weapon that could assist the police when he's out there on the field, So I'm not allowed to say too much, but it's a weapon that's just it just blows your mind, the fact that that maybe current events of today allowed you to create technology for the police to make less mistakes.
Interesting. And Laura, you have an interesting character too, because you're actually taking over a character that Samantha Morton played in the film. So what's that journey been like for you? Is there a challenge to kind of bring your own spin to this character of Agatha?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Samantha Morton was flat out brilliant in the film, and there's nothing that I can do to try to, replicate or assimilate that. I really have to take the rich mythology of the character that exists. And I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than this for a character. You've got a character who was, from a very young age, sort of sedated, lying in a milk bath, haunted by these horrible visions, and what was that like as a childhood? So I kind of am working with that history and trying to figure out, for me, what's the legacy of that? Where does that take her? When the series starts, you see her as a recluse. She's basically, for her own sanity, decided to isolate herself completely so that she's not subject to these horrible visions. But, her brothers have taken a totally different path, and she's worried about them, and she cares about them, and for one way or another, she may well get thrust back into society, and the fact that she doesn't trust anyone out there because she was just exploited, I don't know what maybe that will make her more calculating. Maybe she'll turn out to be, she'll be bitter about it. Maybe she'll be more good-hearted about it. I think she could go a lot of different directions.
Yeah. How would you describe her relationship with Dash?
I think I depend on him. I mean, when you see at the end of the film, we're in that little island, as we say, the sort of precog witness protection program, and he's all I know. I mean, we didn't have a normal childhood. We share a very strange history, and I depend on him for everything, I think. But I think it's like a brother, and I think I also have a little maternal feeling towards them. They're my twin brothers, and I don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, and I got to look out for them. So.
Yeah. It also looked like there's definitely some past between Lara and Will. Is there? What can you say about that relationship, working relationship, and maybe outside?
It depends on who you ask, right? I mean,
It does depend on
it
who you
varies.
ask.
It depends on who you ask. Really.
If you want the truth, ask me.
Oh, okay, really.
All right. So what's the truth?
Well, the truth is... I'll let you go.
That the truth?
No, go ahead.
Okay,
You
come on.
first.
If you're going to tell the
No,
truth...
you first, you first.
If you're going to tell the truth, go ahead.
See, we don't even have to write it.
Share your
They just-
version first.
It's just all real.
I mean,
Don't make it weird. Don't make it weird, Megan. Don't make it weird,
Okay.
Megan.
Well, I can tell you where it's going to go, because I've seen it all, the whole thing. No.
Okay. So, I'll start by saying that Vega and Blake may or may not have had something in the past. They kind of came up together in the ranks, and he got a promotion that she thinks she deserved.
that she did deserve and did the work for.
But it's really a fun dynamic because there's a lot of that kind of plays into, and I think you kind of see it kind of bleed through the screen a little bit. But it's fun because she may not want to admit this, but they're kind of brilliant together. They really do get each other. They really do respect each other.
Go ahead.
I was saying no nice things for my record. But I think that, yes, there is a little bit of that history there, and you're going to see it play out throughout the season, and it may get in the middle of work. Who knows?
Megan, anything to add?
No.
Well, there is also undeniable chemistry between Dash and Lara, I think, in the one scene that we've seen so far. How does Dash's introduction into her world kind of rock her world in a way? Does it?
Yeah, it does, because there is this tenderness to her and there is this softness to her that people don't ever really see, and somehow he begins to tap into that. At the beginning, initially, she doesn't really understand that he is very childlike and he hasn't experienced the world at all. So all of this is very new for him. So the jokes that she says or the way that she kind of handles him, it goes a little bit over his head. But you see as time goes on, him being himself starts to break that kind of hard shell, and she starts to care for him, and also they want to protect each other ultimately because they both want the best and they really want to do the right things and really want to change the world, and they connect over that.
Yeah, they want the same thing. And in the end, she longed for the days of pre-crime, and that's what got her started in the force in the first place. But of course, as soon as she graduated to the force, they shut it down. That was the end of the movie. So when she recognizes me in that, well, the next thing that happens, to give it away, is she recognizes who I am. And that's when the partnership forms. And it's an uneasy one at first because I don't know who I can trust. My sister is the only person I know that's been out in the world. I haven't done it yet, and which is probably why Agatha is wary of me doing this. But I haven't experienced it for myself. And as the little brother who wants to do it on my own and I don't need your advice, it makes sense. So I'm wary, I think it's a very fortuitous pairing and potentially very fruitful.
Yeah. Kevin, it's a great partnership, and are you going to be playing with the romantic aspect of it at all?
But between these two characters, probably not. I think that's what we certainly don't plan to do it. We approached this in a way that we wanted to do it in kind of a fresh way, which is he's the first time he's actually probably talked to a woman with at any length in quite some time. And so we didn't want it to turn into one of those romantic two-handers. If it takes us there at some point in a few years, that's fine. But we wanted that to be more about them trying to. We don't solve crimes on the show. We try to stop murders. So our show doesn't start with a dead body. It's actually making sure there isn't one at the end of the show. We start with a dead body and a vision. So it's the job. That said, there's a great chemistry between them that's not necessarily romantic. It's just that because he's the fish out of water and she's the streetwise cop, we try to do it in a fresh way.
Yeah. We've discussed Steven Spielberg's name on this panel, and he's the director of the movie, of course. And Daryl, what's his involvement with the show? Is he involved in the day-to-day processes?
Yeah, he's involved in every aspect of it. I mean, there's not a person on this panel that wasn't hired by him, but everything from our director, Mark Mylod, who had worked with us on United States of Terror before he did The Affair and Game of Thrones, and the DP, David Franco, who came off of Game of Thrones, who Steven was tracking, and our production designer. I mean, every aspect. 48 hours after he wrapped BFG, he was in a room with these guys working on stories and arcs.
And pitching prop ideas and concepts.
Set design and visual effects, and he sprinkles his pixie dust on everything. But, it's the first film he directed that we're doing as a television show, so it keeps us all up at night to make sure that
we were in
no pressure.
do justice by it. Yeah.
When we were in the room with him, we all went. All the writers went. And like when I'm in the room and Max and I are running the room, we'll talk, and maybe one or two writers will take notes. Steven speaks, and you see 12 pens, just collective writing down everything he says. And he added so much to the show. And you know what? Infused it, I think, with we're a serious show. We're a real fun show. It's the kind of show you watch with a bowl of popcorn, and it's certainly going to have the stakes, but it's just going to be a real entertaining show, and thanks to him and his input.
A guest director for an episode, maybe?
Maybe?
We can afford him.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Max, I'm curious too. We were talking a little backstage. How much of a Bible and of a backstory of this world and these characters did you create before even sitting down to start to write this pilot?
Well, really, one of the first things we did was start to think about the world, and we really created a world Bible, which was written by our consultant who was at the MIT Media Lab, who interviewed just a wealth of incredible scientists at the sort of the head of their fields in various fields, and asked them, what's the world going to look like in 50 years, which is the same thing that Steven did for the movie. And it's the reason why we remember the movies as being so accurate and predictive in so many ways. It's the first place that we saw those kind of gesture screens, and which we now have on our cell phones. And it's the first place that we saw that kind of advertisements that target you and talk to you. And so that's why, we wanted to talk to these people, and we've really assembled a whole vision of the world that is, for the writers now, just so much fun to play with, and ask ourselves, what's it going to be like? And then how is that fun? How is that witty? Or how does the technology not quite work? Or, and really reflect on our world today.
Yeah. For the actors, is there a piece of technology in the show that you would like in your real life, in your real everyday life?
The selfie drone.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm really bad at selfies. I'm getting better at it, but my sister, she can take a picture that's a selfie that you don't even know where her hands are to take the picture. It's the oddest thing. So I would be looking forward to the selfie drone so I can fly up in there and take the picture for me.
Wilbur could give you a lesson if you need.
I want that thing that makes the person just disappear, where you press the button and they're talking, and you can just make them go.
Bye.
Sometimes,
away.
not all the time.
You go away
Sometimes.
I wanted a jetpack.
I know you want that jetpack.
I don't understand how everyone is forgetting the totally baked goods.
I would want the force gun that's also in the movie. Whenever they do the click, 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 and shoot it, and it throws people across the room. I'd want to play with that.
So these are all things that we'll see. The movie technology is all stuff we'll see within the show as well, too, even if we haven't seen it in the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
With the drone selfie, when talking to the consultant, is that something that could actually be happening in the near future?
There are people working on it. Drones that are that small exist. Drones that take pictures, obviously. The challenge apparently is as the landing and the takeoff from the wrist, but people are working on that very problem.
Yeah.
It'll be here sooner than 2065.
Well, I know in the 20 minutes that we saw, there is another character that you guys are introducing, which is Dash's fraternal twin. You guys just announced the casting for that. If you want to reveal it here as well, that would be great.
We cast the amazing Nick Zano as Arthur, Dash's twin, and the fun there is really thinking about it. When they were in the milk bath, these three precogs were a hive mind essentially, and they saw the whole picture. But after pre-crime, they've now been separated and they've become very different people with very different gifts. And so Dash's sort of visual assault of images is very different from what Arthur gets, which is the names and the factual information about these murders, and it's easier to process. And so it makes him more manipulative, a little more like Sherlock Holmes, a little bit, but a bit more edge and a bit more of the sort of bad boy in the world. And so the fun of those two characters who both have this gift but use it in a very different way is something we're really looking forward to playing with.
But really, they're both just amateurs, because I get the whole picture, so.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because the future is definitely addressed in the technology, but you guys are hitting on social issues as well as the first season goes on. Kevin, can you talk about kind of the future social issues that you're going to be hitting on?
Well, we'll get into those in a way that's organic to the story, but so many of the shows, we're living in a technological invasive society now anyway, and shows like Persons of Interest do that, and certainly the movie kicked all that off. We have to figure out ways to, and we want to figure out ways to use what's happening now and use the show of 50 years as a prism to tell stories like that. But we're chasing the best story, and if it's one that reflects on society, that's great. If it's one that's purely entertaining, that's great too.
Well, for us, yeah, and the fun of it is always really using the prism of the future as a way to think about today, in big thematic social ways, and also just in selfie drones and things like that, because those comment on our world too. And what we hope to do is create a future that people want to live in and come back to week, and is fun, but is also engaging and interesting and has the same kind of groundedness and depth that the real world does. So there's that access point to the future.
Yeah. We have Agatha from the movie. Are there any other characters from the movie that we're going to be seeing on the show?
Yeah.
Daniel London, who played Wally. Remember the caretaker and took care of the precogs.
He's the one who brushes their teeth.
Brushes their teeth and combs Agatha's hair lovingly. He's joining us.
He's not still going to brush my teeth, is he?
That's episode 4.
You gotta wait and watch.
We've been meaning to talk about that.
Backstage. That's, and then there's people that we would, certainly think about bringing back. Hello, Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise?
No, well, that's something that may or may not happen.
Okay.
When Steven directs an episode.
Yeah, right. When Steven directs an episode, absolutely.
Sweeps.
Yeah, sweeps.
Well, if you guys have any questions, we should start a line
I have
somewhere.
I have one little spoiler alert. You'll, and don't tell anybody this, but in the episode, in the pilot, you will see evidence that The Simpsons is still on television, celebrating their 75th anniversary.
Well, you guys have layered in a few Easter eggs into the pilot as well, too. Is there anything that we saw that we might...
You missed, well, you should watch the show because it's awesome. And then when it's over, watch it again and just pause it because there's a lot of fun little stuff in there that we really get a kick out of doing.
Yeah, vacations in Tehran. And
That's right. The bus stops in Bartlett Plaza, named after Hosea Bartlett, my old television show of The West Wing, and so there's all these little tiny things that we put in, and it's a blast. The show, we aim on having the show have wit to it, so those moments are fun too.
Great. Well, if you guys have any questions, don't know exactly where I should be looking. Middle, right.
There's a lone spotlight.
Oh, there.
Hi, good day. My name is Simon. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago.
Hey, Simon.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, Simon.
Megan is an amazing person, let me tell you. She came to Trinidad a couple of years ago and worked with the orphanages down there. So, she's doing great work here as an actress and, of course, also all over. My question really is, it's an interesting group of casting choices and an amazing cast as well. And basically, in terms of Meagan and Wilma, my question has to do with the fact that we are accustomed to seeing you in these comedic roles, that you played throughout the years. I mean, that's not been your focus, but how is it now, that you've gone into this role that is probably going to lean on other aspects of, not drawing on the comedic side of it,
Right.
but yet, how do you plan to, based on the character, still show that sort of flair that you guys have demonstrated in, other roles as well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. While the show definitely has, and I don't even want to say dramatic, but it just has its kind of real life aspect in this particular world of what's going on. There still are a lot of moments to just be, funny, not intentionally, but because the moment is there and it exists, and there'll definitely be that where, God willing, will make you laugh as well. But we also want to. Make you, thrilled and afraid of what's going to happen and fear for the character and really care about what's going to happen with them. So I think we use a little bit of both,
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the right answer. I mean, I feel really blessed that in the long period of time that I've been doing this acting thing, I've been given the opportunity to stretch my muscle a little bit, to exercise muscles that most actors don't get the privilege to do. So sometimes when you do comedy, that's what you do comedy. Sometimes when you do drama, that's what you do drama, and I've been very lucky that I've been given the opportunity to do both, effortlessly throughout the years. But I do have to say that when the show deals with this type of stakes, when the stakes are this high, when the operation is this precise, and this thrilling and this, this serious, I think that there's also the human side that kicks in, which is sometimes you gotta have a little bit of a sense of humor with the case. Sometimes you have to have a little sense of humor with your partners, because that's why, because we actually love what we do as a lieutenant and as a detective. We're there because we have a hunger for the sport, and we enjoy playing together. And I think that also it's a little bit of that element that makes it, allows us to be a little fun and funny and sarcastic and it's important that you take the weight off. I think that I'm not necessarily a big fan of when the scene is super serious, that you take it too serious, because I think if those characters have been a lieutenant or a detective for a very long time, I'm pretty sure that they, by now, they have some type of sense of humor about what they do on a daily basis, And I think that makes the characters more human, because at the end of the day, the show is about the people that live in this very exotic, unique, and futuristic and aspirational world. And to me, that's where the strength of the show is. Is how do we bring those characters back to life, and how do you believe, them? But I'm excited. I'm excited that I get to do that, and I'm really grateful, of Kevin, Max, and Daryl, and Steven Spielberg, and
Justin.
Everyone, that and Justin, that can see us in this world and see us pay tribute to it, and hopefully you guys feel the same way.
For the producers, were you guys looking for actors with comedic backgrounds to kind of fit into this world for the reasons that Wilmer said?
It's all about that balance, and we were looking for the best actors to play these roles, and we got so lucky in finding people who have that balance between being able to be serious and be charming and engaging, and characters that you're going to want to come back to week. We lucked out.
Yeah, we did, and we write to the humor. The show is funny in the right places and at the right times, but we really emphasize that. We like to have the wit, and those guys all deliver it very well.
Excellent, thank you.
Look at
Next
that
question.
guy. How cute.
Hi. First, I just gotta say that
Hey.
You look great, buddy.
We love your costume. Ow!
You're being lit from one side only.
So anyway, first I just gotta say that Wilma, you make me laugh every day on Netflix. And then
Thank you very much, buddy.
and what I was wondering is if any of you to prep for the role took research from the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of us kind of did a little bit of a let's revisit the film, even though we love it so much. Let's really study the science, the world, the dynamic, the energy of that room, but but we also were excited to bring, what does that world look like 10 years after pre-crime was abolished? I think that was exciting to us, and I think, you guys can speak a little bit on that too, but I think we bring a little bit more light to this world. It's not as gloomy or as dark as the future sometimes tends to be played out in movies and in other projects, but I think we try to figure out that maybe the world is not going to be terrible, maybe there's just crime, but we continue to live on, Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have source material that's so rich, it actually started with a short story by Philip K. Dick, which is, how amazing is that? So there's a lot of stuff to dig into, but I also think it's important, like Wilmer said, to explore it for ourselves and find out what it is and make it new and make it fresh.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Man.
Thank you.
You look great, bud.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Sharon. I want to say first, Wilmer, in that 70s show, I absolutely loved you. And having done a show in the past and now working in the present, question for the whole panel, if you could choose a time period from the past or the future to live in, which would you choose?
Oh, I'm going to start. I'd choose the past. I'd choose that kind of like 30s, 40s, sort of that you see in those sort of film noir kind of, maybe even in LA, like that kind of LA Confidential sort of world. That's where I'd live.
Well, I already lived the 70s. So I'm going to skip those. But I like that era as well, and I think that when you see my character on Minority, I think you get to see that I try to be a little retro with the way I dress, because I kind of my homage to, how my great-grandparents maybe used to, dress like.
But you mean retro like 2045? Like 2045? Is that retro in
No, I'm going
2065?
way back. I'm going way back.
Everything that's old becomes new again.
Right.
But the future looks pretty awesome. So maybe 2065 might be the year that I'd like to focus on.
Nice. I am looking forward to the future, but I definitely love the 80s. I was born in the 80s, but but I wish I was like 20 in the 80s, and then I could still be 20 now, because I'm 20 now. But I do wish I was like 20 in the 80s, because it just seemed like such a fun time and such a free time and such a evolved point before we get too evolved and think about it too much. It was kind of that great in between. So that's what I would say.
When I grew up, I was obsessed with King Arthur and medieval times, and I really wanted to be a knight. I wanted to live back in those days and ride horses and save maidens and things. And then the more I learned about the actual conditions that those people lived in, I decided that maybe that was not a great idea. So I would live in that time if it was like my imagination of that time.
That was a great question, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Star, and my question is for Max and the producers. You touched on it earlier when you mentioned the selfie drones and how you depict technology on this show. My question is, how do you find a balance between showing technology or special effects that is distracting and tech that's necessary in telling the story?
Well, that is the real challenge and the fun of it. It's a great question, we really try to have the story drive everything. And in a show like this, when you're setting it, 50 years from now, you have to think about every scene in a way you don't normally. If you in a normal show, you say, "Oh, it's two people. They're sitting in a car and they're talking." Okay, great. Wait a minute. We have to have a car. What's that car going to be? Is there a driver or is there not a driver? And so we try to lean into technology that has a point, where there's something fun. It's talking about the world, and you watch it and you go, that's kind of funny. That's interesting. I didn't think that would happen. And we challenge ourselves all the time to pick those places and pick those spots to really showcase it, and that way it doesn't overtake the characters, but it becomes hopefully this additive element that's just almost another character in the show.
Hi, my name's Gabby. I'm from Puerto Rico, and first I want to say amazing. I'm super excited for the show. My question is for Lara and Stark. Since you play such secluded characters, what mindset or what kind of process do you use to prepare for such a role?
That's a great question.
Great.
And it's funny because I don't think we've ever talked to each other about that really at all. But I kind of came at the character that she had sort of an otherworldly feeling, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. I mean, she's not an alien, she's a human person, but she hasn't had any of the normal experiences that we all have. She's never functioned in society before. She's never had a friend. You know, she has these 2 stepbrothers. So, I mean, I can't give away all my secrets, but I feel like I sort of started with an image of her being sort of like very like tall and like something ruling her that's up here. I don't know, like not sort of grounded. Sometimes you hear about people who are very grounded and solid and normal, but that she was sort of different, maybe. That's one place I started with, but what about you?
Yeah, that's actually the very first thing that I spent time thinking about when I got the part, or when I was auditioning for the part, and because it's one thing to play somebody who has this superpower and who can see the future, but it's a whole other thing when that person has never really interacted with human beings other than these 2 people he grew up with. So I spent a lot of time thinking about isolation. I spent a lot of time, like, I have a wife, and I spent a little time up in the Catskills not talking, which was not very kind to her, but I wanted to know what it felt like. You know, I live in New York City, and it's like, you don't have isolation there. You know, you do a lot of mental homework in getting ready for anything. This was a very multi-layered experience, just trying to imagine that layer on top of all the other stuff. And it's complicated, and it's ongoing. You know, we're still in the early stages of making the show, so we'll spend a lot more time thinking about that.
Didn't both of you actually go into like an isolation chamber?
That's a great call,
in
yeah.
Toronto?
Laura, you did it first, didn't you? Or did I do it first?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Have you heard of these float tanks where you float in a tank? You pay money. It's like almost like going to a massage parlor or a tanning booth, but instead it's this white tank it's like the milk bath, and it's for
Sounds
therapeutic.
like a spa.
It's like a spa, but it's blackness. You can't hear anything. You can't see anything. You have earplugs in and you're floating in salt water so that you're actually, like, you're not touching the walls, you're not touching the ground. And within a few minutes, because the water is the same temperature as the human body, you don't even feel the water anymore. And that was an interesting, thank you for reminding me about that, Max. Just to sort of know what it felt like to float around in that milk bath and be left with only your own thoughts.
Laura, did you have any contact with Samantha Morton about this character?
No, none at all. I mean, I revere her. She's an astonishingly talented actress. It's quite daunting, actually, to like take over this role from her. Scary, daunting, all of those things. But I'm really just working with the mythology that's set up for the character, and it's so rich. It's great to just sink my teeth into it in my own way. I really can't. You can't copy someone. You just have to take the reins and run.
Yeah.
It's like doing a Broadway show where you take over for somebody else, and you don't just want to emulate what they did. You got to make it your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Archie. Thank you all for doing this panel. My question is for Max. What are the differences or challenges between writing for film and TV? And thank you so much for Godzilla. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, well, thanks. And me too. I'm excited about it. This is my first experience in television, and it's amazing. The thing that I think is really the big difference is that as a style of storytelling, you really have to think about the long game in a way that in a movie you have maybe 2 hours to tell that story, and that's sort of what all that energy goes into. And we put a lot of energy into the pilot, but the whole thing that we spend our time thinking about is what is this sort of story going to be like that you're going to live with, and who are these characters going to be that you're going to fall in love with and evolve over time. And as a writer, and Kevin and I and the writing staff have such fun having ideas that don't fit right now, but we know, like, oh, we're going to get to that, and that's going to be amazing. And in a movie, if it doesn't fit, that's it. but we have this sandbox that we get to play in, hopefully for a long time to come, and that kind of evolving stream, it's like a river, and you're on that ride. So that's really exciting.
Well, we can catch the full premiere and watch out for those Easter eggs for the parts that we did see today, September 21st on Fox. Please give it up for the cast and producers of Minority Report.